What up, y'all? I'm Hugh, and this is an unfiltered Hugh. And today I'm going to be starting a new series called Therapy Thursdays, where I kind of already wanted to do it, but after I had a really long conversation with my friend the other day who was going through it, and then she literally had a session with her therapist later on that day, and she was like, "Girl, my therapist basically already literally said almost everything that you told me." So that kind of just gave me more of a push to just start this series. Um, so here it is. This is Therapy Thursdays, and the first topic that we're going to talk about today is, I feel like, something that most people deal with or feel is the question of why do I not feel good enough, or why do I not feel enough? Same thing. So, as someone who had that as a core belief for most of my life, I could say that the reason that I felt like I wasn't good enough is because of external things that basically tainted my view of myself. So, as a kid, there were different things that occurred outside of my control that then made, as kids, we are pretty self centered. So we think everything's about us. And so when traumatic, even when like even when traumatic things happen or things like that aren't necessarily positive or in our favor, we still tend to think it's our fault. So when traumatic things happen or things that are too overwhelming happen when we're little kids, we end up making up some definition of as to why that happened in order to be able to continue going on. It would be really hard for little kids, for example, who dealt with abandonment issues. It would be very hard for little kids to be able to accept, like, hey, like my parent can't take care of me. Like that's a hard pill for a kid to swallow. So instead, it's easier for a kid to say, well, it's my fault. Like I don't have good enough grades, or I don't look good enough, or I don't do enough, or I don't blah 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 blah. The list could go on and on and on. And so, with the topic of not feeling good enough, we really have to realize that basically just getting down to like the truth of it is that we all have been programmed from the age of 0 to 7, that is influencing our current worldview. Basically, when we have different brains, like different type of brain systems, and when we're a little, from the age of 0 to 7, we're operating from a certain type of brain functionality versus, when you move on past 7 and past so on and so forth. So from the ages of 0 to 7, basically your brain is like a tape recorder, and so everything that you experience from the age of 0 to 7, your brain is basically just like recording it, like on record mode, like okay, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. So then after the age of 7, um, that's when a different brain comes on, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, or else I would say them. But that's when a different brain comes on, and basically everything that you learn from your 0 to 7 year old brain is now you're basically living through that lens after the age of 7. So if you were, for example, if you grew up abandoned between the ages of 0 to 7, now from 8 and beyond, you have a worldview lens of people abandon me. I might be abandoned. So a lot of you might, people who are abandoned might have abandonment issues deep subconsciously that they're not even aware of, that then affect their ability to, formulate healthy relationships as adults, because they have this deep core wound that they are going to be abandoned, that they don't even, some people don't even realize that they have that. And that's because your foundational lens of life is, abandonment, because that's what happened between the ages 0 to 7. And so you have a tape recorder playing in your head, like people leave, important people leave, saying this from personal experience as well, because I had a wound from within that age. And so for me personally, I had to do a lot of, healing and deep digging regarding that, because it hindered my ability to be able to think that it just hindered my, ability to have a quality life, because I was viewing everything from the lens of I'm not good enough because I was abandoned. And there's a lot of people I'm sure that can resonate with that, or other things. It could really be applied to anything. So basically, that is why most of us feel like we're not good enough. Obviously, things could happen after the age of 0 to 7 that influences you not feeling good enough as well. But basically when it's 0 to 7, it's deeper like programming within you. Like your brain, it's like your brain's foundational operating system basically. And until you become conscious of that and be like, oh shit, like I do feel like I'm not good enough because of X, Y, and Z. I feel like I'm not good enough because I didn't have friends, or I feel like I'm not good enough because, I got bullied, or the list goes on and on and on. But the point is, you realize like I feel like I'm not good enough. Like you become aware of it. You know, awareness is the first step. You have to be aware of what you're feeling or what you're thinking or this and that to be able to change it. You can't just be like, I'm not going to address that feeling. I'm not going to even entertain that because then you're avoiding it. And when you avoid it, it's still going to come up. It's still going to be like, hey, hello, how are you? Just in different like disguises until you realize like, hey, that's the exact same shit just in a different way because I haven't learned the lesson yet. So basically, that being said, like I want everybody to know that you are good enough. Like as someone who had, like I said, between the ages 0 to 7, I had a core wound that I was not good enough. And now I do know that I am. There's nothing or no one that can convince me otherwise. It's not up for discussion. Versus before, I was trying to find my worth in people pleasing, for example, and trying to do whatever I could to make other people happy so that they wouldn't abandon me. But then, it just created this perpetual cycle of, oh well, if I end up not doing what they want, then they are going to leave me. And so then I was just going around in circles, trying to please people, but still being afraid that they were going to leave me, and that just like left me so drained and empty because like how could you live a life like that? How could you live a happy full life feeling like at any moment somebody could leave you if you don't if you don't please them in the way that you have made up in your you made up in your mind is going to please them. So at the end of the day, like just know that you are worthy, know that you are important, know that your worth is inherent. You were born worthy. Just like an innocent little baby, like using the example of a baby that was just born. If we see a baby that was just born, we're not going to be like that baby's not worthy, that baby whatever. We're not going to do that. We're going to be like, oh my god, look at that precious little baby, like that little. Of course we think it's worthy immediately. Why? Because it was born. It's a baby. It's precious. Like why would we think otherwise? And so we got to start applying that same logic to ourselves. We all were born that once precious little baby that everybody was doting over and everybody was loving and spoiling. And obviously some people did not have that experience, and not you know just trying to be understanding of everybody's situation. But for the most part, most babies are looked at as worthy, and so we were born worthy, just like every baby is. We were once a baby that was born worthy, and so our worth does not diminish just because the world tries to convince us otherwise. Just because our parents, for example, were told by their parents or by their peers or by their teachers, and so on and so forth, and it goes to our grandparents and our great grandparents, and the list goes on and on and on and on. All this trauma is passed down, and somebody has to realize, like, hey, these are all programs that I don't like. They don't serve me, and I don't have to listen to them. I had the core program. I'm not good enough for most of my life. And then, as I started my healing journey 5 years ago, I realized, like, hey, I had a little epiphany. Um, why am I not good enough? What makes me so different than other people? Because I believed other people were good enough. It just I feel like I had this core flaw, and so now, fast forward 5 years later, like I know that I'm worthy. I know that I'm good enough. I know that there's nothing that anyone or anything can tell me otherwise. I know that it's just not up for discussion. Like versus before, it was up for discussion. It wasn't even a thought, honestly. Like I didn't even consider worth in me in the same sentence. So that being said, like this is the first episode for that, or the first, yeah, basically the first video I'm gonna do regarding worth. You are good enough, regarding you being good enough and believing that you are good enough. Um, you are good enough. You're good enough. You're good enough, and you don't need anybody to validate that for you. All you have to do is validate that for that. All you need to do is validate that for. All you need to do is validate that for yourself. All you need to do is decide, hey, I'm good enough. Like I don't need my mom to tell me. I don't need my dad to tell me. I don't need my friends, my significant other. I don't need my professors. Like, you don't need anybody to validate you being good enough. That being said, this is Therapy Thursday, and I am your fellow non licensed but have a psychology degree therapist, Hugh, and I hope that you learned something while viewing. You are worthy, you are good enough, and that's just not up for discussion unless you think that it is. It's your world. Till next time. Bye. Peace, y'all. Peace.